Hi there and welcome to the 15th row in the Get Fit by Rowing series. Basically does what it says in the tin. You're going to get fit by rowing. Now today's session is going to be a low intensity workout. We're going to do 30 minutes at a low intensity and a low stroke rate. What do I mean by low intensity? Hopefully you know by now, but in case you're new to this series, then low intensity means a zone 2 heart rate, which is 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. And I'd rather you were in the middle of that, around about 65%. It also means round about 5 out of 10 effort. Now remember, 1 out of 10 is sitting on the couch eating a bag of chips, and then 10 out of 10 is when you're absolutely eye-busting, kind of going up and down at full speed. So you're kind of putting in effort, but you're nowhere near maximum, okay? And then if you have a 2K training pace, which is your average 2K time, and then you use this as a kind of a reference to that pace, then I want you to do this at 18 to 20 seconds slower than your 2K training pace. If you don't know what 2K training pace is, it's actually in the description on this video, so you can go and go, oh, that's what he's on about, all right? So we need to get into a 4-minute warm-up first before we get started in our main session, and we need to set up our machines. Now on a water rower, there's not much for me to do. I just need to make sure and keep my monitor at eye height, and then I'll adjust my foot straps. But if you're in a Concept 2, you need to go to your drag factor and set that to where you want it to be. If you don't know about drag factor, just set it between 4 and 5 for the time being, and check out the video I have on this channel afterwards that tells you where you might want to set it. If you're on a non-Concept 2 or just something that has like a resistance thing on it, set it so you get a nice feel from the stroke, but you don't have to heave against, okay? You're not wanting to get your arms tired from having to heave against the stroke, okay? And then finally, then the foot stretchers, you want to set them to a height where you're able to come forwards to the front of the machine with your shins in a vertical position comfortably, okay? And by comfortably, I mean you're not feeling really bound up and it doesn't feel like your heels have to come right off the foot plates in order to get there. So it should just be nice and natural. You come into the front, shins vertically, okay? Good kind of idea is just to have the strap over the balls of your feet. That's a good starting point, and you can move up and down from there. So 4-minute warm-up, we're going to do this around about 20 strokes a minute, and the power to start this warm-up at is as though you were standing up with a bag of shopping in each hand, okay? So basically you're in a squat and you have to stand up. It's right about that much power. I hope that makes sense. Okay, here we go then in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Now of course, that all depends what you bought that day. Maybe you've just gone out and bought some new clothes, which won't be that heavy. So you're not going to be pushing that much, but maybe you've been out and you just thought, I'm going to buy a bag of watermelons. In which case, standing up from that squat would be a bit more powerful. Sorry, I don't know why I started off there. Anyway, right, so keep that kind of light pressure going, so you've got enough force going in order to make the machine move, but then you can think about having that forwards tilt over your hips into the front of the machine with arms straight, and then you push your feet into the machine to get the power in while holding straight arms and the forwards tilt, and only swing back and pull in at the back of the stroke. There's a very brief overview. I'll go into technique a tiny bit more in the main session, but for the time being, push a little harder with your feet. Get that intensity up to round about the 5 out of 10 effort, 2K plus 18 to 20 pace. Your heart rate probably won't be anywhere near 60 to 70% of max yet, don't worry. But this is kind of that 5 out of 10, heart rate's up a bit, breathing rate's up a bit, intensity, you just know you're working. That's kind of what you're going to be rowing today's main session at today, okay? Low intensity, that's the key. This is what will build your core base fitness. Right, 2 more strokes. 1 more, then we'll take 1 foot out. Put it on the ground. Can't do that on this. Oh, there we go. Put it on the ground, continue rowing. So I'm still trying to work out if there's a way to quick release out of the water rower straps, but there isn't really. Yeah, so this will help with your flexibility coming forwards. Hold that forwards tilt to round about 1 o'clock on the clock face and push with the leg. And swap legs or feet continue going. So I've been a bit lazy there because I've just put my foot on top of the strap, which is okay for this part of the drill, but then I now have to strap in and tighten both legs when it comes to the next stage of the warm-up, which is the back and arms only rowing. Right, so one more stroke here, and then strap both feet back in as quick as you can, but don't worry if you lose a few seconds here, or like me, loads of seconds. And then we're going to row with our back and arms. How are we? Oh, we lost a good 10 seconds there, so let's take 25 seconds of each. So you're just swinging over your hips and pulling in your arms, out with your arms, and then rock back over your hips again. So it's important just to take up that initial strain with your back. Okay, let's roll to the front, arms straight, forwards tilt, and just use your legs to push out from the front. Just kind of get that initial bite and your leg drive, but hold your arms straight and that forwards tilt. So you're working on the timing, but also that feeling of holding this kind of forwards lean tilt thing as you drive. Lean tilt thing? Not going to win any prizes for my, my English today, am I? Right, so keep moving up and down the rail if you wish, or up and down the slide, whatever you want to call it. Have a quick drink and I'll quickly go over one more time what we're doing today. Okay, then what we're doing today is a 30-minute low intensity row. Okay, no gimmicks, no pauses, no rests, no drills or anything. But if you want to stop halfway or at one point to have a quick drink to stay hydrated, please do, okay? You could just, it's better that you're hydrated than you try and slog your way through this. Now remember, this is low intensity, so that means 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, zone 2. It also means kind of around about 5 out of 10 on the kind of effort scale, or around about 2K plus 18 to 20 if you're using a 2K training pace. But bear in mind that the 2K training pace is a subset of itself, okay? It doesn't really work within the heart rate training thing at the same time. If you are doing 2K training, keep an eye on your heart rate and see how long it takes for it to break out of that zone 2, 60 to 70% of max heart rate. Because it's quite interesting to see, because that way you'll go, oh, right, okay, so 20 minutes and you've gone too far. So then you'll know that, okay, I have to start at 2K plus 22 or something, but yeah, okay? So all I'm really trying to say there is that the two protocols, although they seem similar, eventually they diverge, okay? And I know I say that quite a lot, but I just want to clear up the confusion between it, okay? Because some people think they're completely interchangeable and they're not. So, you ready for this? I'm going to have a quick drink. That's being it's 30 minutes worth of rowing we're about to have, and I don't intend to stop for a drink. Okay, all right, so 20 strokes a minute in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Nice low intensity. Nice kind of duck pond level row. Now, the stroke rate thing. Just to say, these 20 strokes a minute rows, the reason it's down at 20 is to keep it nice and relaxed, okay? Yes, you can probably row at the same slow pace up at 28 strokes a minute, but just that high tempo can have a result in spiking your heart rate. So by keeping the stroke rate down low, even though it means like the blades in the water, blades, paddles, what are they called? Or the fan on a Concept 2 will slow down, will slow down quite a lot because you're taking so much time between each stroke. And that adds to the weight of the stroke. Because you're keeping the pace on the lower end, and the stroke rate is down at 20, this is kind of what's geared towards keeping these low intensity. Now for this series, I don't think I've done any rows lower than 20 strokes a minute. You'll often see on my other plans that I'll throw in 18 strokes a minute from time to time. But I'm not going to do it this time because actually 20 is probably as low as a lot of you might want to go if you're not used to rowing at low stroke rate. And if nothing else, you can just look at your counter, your timer, and count down in threes. It's a lot harder to do that for 18 strokes a minute. It's like you have to count down in 3.3s, which isn't quite as easy. But at the risk of jumping straight into kind of a motivation thing and not being particularly windswept and interesting with my chat, just want to say, don't skip these. I know the 10 times 1 minute max intensity row that came before this was a lot more exciting, and you'll certainly have got off the machine feeling like you had a really, really intense workout, as opposed to today where you're kind of meant to stop this one knowing you've had a workout, but actually you should finish today's row thinking, I've got a lot more in. The tank. And that's kind of the point of today's row, is that you're not actually tapping your energy levels too much. What you're doing is building them up. So, I mean, I've used a few analogies in time, and I've talked about building your blood system, your mitochondria, but really just think about your energy, your sport energy, let's say, as a big bowl of power, okay? So a big golden bowl filled with blue sparkling power, okay? And what you want to do is work on two things. You want to work on giving yourself a bigger bowl, okay? So that way you can have more energy, okay? So you have more energy available to you when you're doing something. And that's what this row is doing for you, okay? So this one increases your big golden bowl of energy, so you can fit more of those blue sparkling fuel cells. I'm totally running out here, but you get what I mean. And then the flip side to this is the workouts like yesterday, the VO2 max ones. And although that workout is less geared towards expanding the size of your bowl, what it does is it helps with how fast you have to use that energy, how efficient that it is in giving it out to your body. So say when you, let's give it numbers, all right? So say your big bowl of power, you filled it up so it's 10 liters big. Okay, that's the amount of energy you have available to you. In a plan like this, hopefully by the end of it, you've increased that bowl of power up to like 15 liters. Okay, so you've really increased it. But then, at the beginning of the series, maybe when you are rowing at max power, okay, so you're putting everything into your rows, your body is using, let's say, 1 liter of fuel a minute, okay? Obviously, pinch of salt with the the amount of the actual numbers I'm using here, but hopefully it'll make sense. So 1 litre a minute when you aren't training, you haven't trained your fitness system. But then through the low intensity rows, you manage to grow the size of your bowl from 10 litres to 15 litres, and through the max intensity VO2 maxed training sessions, instead of using 1 litre a minute, you're now using 1 litre every minute and a half. Or, put it another way, let's say 3/4 of a litre per minute. So that means that you have more available power, but you're using it more efficiently, so you can also go faster for longer. And so that increases your fitness on both ends, and they both help each other out, because as your fitness at the top end has helped how fast you use your power at max, it also helps how fast you use up your power on these low intensity workouts. So maybe your 10 litres of power would last you half an hour, say. Because you're training your efficiency at the top end too, those 10 litres, you can now stretch them to last 45 minutes at a low intensity. Do you get what I mean? Hopefully you do. And so what you want to do is take care of that bowl of power, bearing in mind after every session it needs to refill. And part of that is on a low intensity workout like this one, you don't drain it too much. Okay, so you don't want to use up all of your available power by going too hard, too fast on a 30-minute row like this and using up that bowl of power. You just want to use about half of it in a session like today, so that then when you eat well and sleep well, the next day your body has completely recharged your bowl of power, and likely it's grown in size slightly too. What that then means is if your next session is a max intensity, you have all that tank, that bowl to work with again. And even if you absolutely scrape that barrel dry, like I certainly did in yesterday's max intensity row, the good thing is that even if by the next day it's only recovered to 3/4 available, okay, so you've really tapped out the day before, you can't recover fully in just one day. Doing a row like this one the next day means you're still not using the 2/3 power that is in your bowl, and it means that all you need is another day's recovery and you'll be back up to full again. Does that make sense? And this is why you don't want to always work at max intensity or even in between intensity, because what happens is you keep on emptying your bowl and not giving it enough sessions to either grow bigger or refill. There you go. Right, sorry. That was a long time talking about that, but it's a concept I haven't really properly put any kind of embellishment to. I've just said it's important to row at zone 2 and zone 5, but I haven't kind of painted a picture. And so if you can just think about filling up your bowl with that blue sparkling energy and keeping it from running dry for too long, then you'll have the chance to increase your bowl of fitness, and you'll have the chance to become more efficient at how you use it. And that's why we keep sessions like today's at a nice low intensity, and you try to take care and not push too far or too fast. So, where are we? We're coming up for 14 minutes gone. We're just past 13 and a half. And I am firmly at that 65% of max heart rate point. So what I want to be careful of is that I don't drift too high through the next 16 minutes, which from a cardiac drift point of view is quite likely. But often, so exertion can play a part in your heart rate going up. Dehydration can play a part in your heart rate going up. I know for me, when I'm talking way too much and not breathing properly, even within sentences, I can see my heart rate spiking up, like I've just from concentrating on my breath while talking to you in the past 30 seconds, I've dropped 3 beats per minute from my heart rate, but I haven't reduced the speed that I'm rowing at. So I'm still at 2:05 pace, but because I'm now talking to you with a slightly better breath rhythm, getting that oxygen into my body and the carbon dioxide back out again, my heart's like, oh, thank you very much. That's kind of you. So yeah, so don't just think it's about pace. It can be about other things. And it can be technique too. So the reason, there are a few reasons that I talk about technique, but it's really about efficiency, so you don't tire too quickly, about injury prevention, so that you don't hurt anything while you're rowing, but it's also about allowing you to put in lots of power when you want to, which kind of does tie in with the efficiency thing, but I said there were 3 things, so. But if you take, for example, this high rocks thing that I've started doing, or been doing for, where are we? May, almost a year. It has a rowing element to it, so in the middle of 8 1-kilometer runs, you do a 1K ski erg, you do a sled push, sled pull, burpee broad jumps, then a row, then lunges, then farmer's carry, then lunges, wall balls, and you're done. But because loads of people come at this from different sport history, it's interesting to see how the row stage is done by a lot of people. And usually it's done poorly from a technique point of view. Admittedly, it's halfway through the race, so people are fairly exhausted by the time they sit down the rowing machine, and it's the only occasion you get in the race to sit down. So it's understandable that some people take their foot off the gas and ease off and use it as a rest. But my point, which mostly falls on deaf ears, to be fair, is that if you're going to use it as a rest, use it properly as a rest. And that's where efficiency comes in. Because what you find is that most people with a poor technique tend to skip that forwards tilt into the front of the machine. Or at least they may tilt forwards, but they don't hold it. What they'll do is they'll come in and then swing back and lose that back power. Or they'll come into the front and they will pull. You'll see that lurch of their arms as they pull from the front. Both of which are terribly inefficient, and if you're trying to hold some kind of pace that you're used to rowing at, you're gonna tire yourself out really quick. Because if I was rowing at 2 minutes 10 pace, say, and I was doing it just by pulling with my arms, I'd end up fairly exhausted and with quite sore arms afterwards. Or even if I was using my legs and arms and skipping out my back, from an efficiency point of view, I'd only be rowing at like 70% efficiency. And if I just added in that backswing to my stroke, I could push less with my legs and pull less with my arms. And that's really what you want. If you're using the row stage in high rocks as a rest, you want to be able to work all your muscles at reduced intensity. And so that's why you come into the front, you start by pushing with the legs, but you're holding that forwards tilt to a 1 o'clock angle and straight arms as you push. That lets the leg power get into the machine firstly uninterrupted, and then you add in your back and arms, which means you didn't need to push quite as hard with your legs at the drive to hold your pace. That's not really just for high rocks. It's not just for Christmas. It's for everything. But I understand that people get tired, but what I don't really understand or enjoy is when they're just gonna go set their fingers in their ears and go blah, blah, blah. When someone does say, you could row so much more efficiently. There was one guy, I actually made one of my Form Check Friday videos about him. Spanish high rocks competitor, Samuel Torres, who is really strong, looks really strong, and races, or at least in 2021, raced in the elite category of high rocks. And then you watch this row, and I've seen better techniques in the worst of gyms. It's terrible. And you're thinking, you're an elite athlete, yet nobody has drilled into you that you can be more efficient on the rower. A few people replied to my review of it saying, no, but remember, he's having a rest. Rubbish. He's an elite athlete. For a start, if you're an elite, you shouldn't need to rest. But you should also understand the mechanics of each move that you're doing and how it affects the toll on your fitness system. So with a really limp leg drive, no backswing, and basically all upper body pull, he would have been tiring himself out much quicker than if he just have put in a reduced leg drive, backswing, and arm pull. Because as it was, I think it was his 1K time was 4:40. Now that includes running to the machine and back off the machine. But got to figure that was like a 4:20, maybe 4:10, 1K. Now I can do that with my backswing only, even when I'm tired. And so that's my point, is that efficiency shouldn't be ignored. And it's not just about high rocks. It's about this kind of row as well, where efficiency plays into your fitness. If you're more efficient, you should be able to hold the right pace for the whole workout without ballooning your heart rate. And then the key really becomes finding the right pace. Right, so coming up on 27 minutes gone, I don't know whether it's just because I've been entertaining myself, but I really feel that those 27 minutes have flown by. In fact, if you think back to when I was saying 15 minutes to go, that feels like it was only a finger snap ago, a Thanos snap of the fingers. The Avengers. I went to see the third Guardians of the Galaxy film this past weekend. Don't worry, not going to spoil it, but it's interesting just to see how tonally all these Marvel movies are kind of all over the place, that lead in to the Avengers Endgame film was so focused. Every single film that was coming out in that period was pointed towards Endgame. Whereas right now, it just seems a little random. Whereas in any other time, that'd be fine. You'd be like, yay, fun Marvel. But because they set the bar, the storytelling bar, so high, leading up to Endgame, it does feel slightly like the movies are lacking another layer to them. If you look at the most recent Ant-Man film as well, which I loved, thought it was great, but then I got a real soft spot for Michelle Pfeiffer, so I just gazed lovingly at her on screen. Also got a real soft spot for Paul Rudd. Gazed lovingly at him too. I just think he's hilarious. Every time somebody says, well, not every time, it's not like a constant conversation, but if ever I'm asked who my favourite Friends character was, I always say Mike, the Paul Rudd character. Crap bag. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, but go and see Guardians 3. It's still a really good film. It just doesn't have that added content layer that we're so used to in Marvel films. Oh, one more stroke. Oh. Now I ended up bang on 70% there for my heart rate, so it's maybe just scraping a little high, but I forgot about my breathing pattern, so let's have a quick drink while I load up a 2-minute cooldown. Right, I just sped up all of that, well, hopefully remembered to speed up all of that button pushing. This is after yesterday's row that I initially uploaded without cutting out some fluffs that I'd actually made about strapping in your feet. So the initial upload, which is still there but unlisted, has me going, so come into the forward with your come into the front with your straps over your feet. So yeah, it took me like 4 attempts to get it right. I didn't cut it out. How embarrassing. So, right, hopefully that's been enough recovery time between the end of the session and our cooldown. So we can get to 2-minute cooldown at pretty much the same pace you're just rowing at, but just gradually slow down as we get through these 2 minutes. In 3, 2, 1, let's go. Yeah. I mean, I do try. I mean, so I said in a previous row in this series that my day job is editing TV programs, okay? So this is what I do for a living, is edit stuff together. And I must be said, I really do just half-ass. That doesn't give me an explicit, does it, by saying that word? Hopefully not. the edits of like the filming of these videos, like the fact that there's never angle changes or close-ups and stuff. And then I try and just do it all in one take so that I don't have to worry about finding edit points and things. But really shouldn't be that lazy, it's my job after all. Although, just to explain, the fact that everything, when we get into the main rows, even though sometimes I'll do close-ups for like the intro and whatever, once we get into rowing, I stick to this angle because there are other fitness solutions on the rowing machine out there that they're filmed from many different angles and they're constantly cutting between camera 1, camera 4, camera 2, camera 1. And every time I've done a video like that, I find it really irritating because I just want to watch them and get into the rhythm, the groove with them. So as they come forwards, I come forwards. As I drive, they drive. And all the edits mess with that. Last one. Plus, there are a few times they're talking to you about technique and it's cut to the wrong camera and you're like, you're telling me about coming forwards, but you're giving me a front angle. I need to be able to see from the side. So anyway, that's why everything's shot from the side. So we're done. Right, so let's get into stretching section next. If you don't have time to stretch, please stretch your quads, your hamstrings and your glutes at one point, but not in the shower because I don't want you to slip and fall over. If you've managed to find some space on a mat while I said that last line, then Stretchy John has just appeared and he will take you through how to stretch on a mat, okay? Hopefully you'll learn that there are times I flannel in these videos, and that's one of them. So my flanneling was to give you enough time to find a mat. Or, if you can't get a mat, put your feet back into your rowing machine straps, legs nice and straight, and I'll take you through some stretches that you can do on the rowing machine, okay? So, legs nice and straight, hands in the air. Oops, make sure you're comfortably on your seat, not perched off the edge. Hands in the air, and then just fold forwards. And hopefully this will give you a nice stretch into your hamstrings, okay? Rest your hands on your ankles or wherever you can reach. And if you want to, after 15 seconds or so, you can walk your hands forwards to increase that kind of the tension of your stretch, but you're not pulling yourself forwards, okay? You're not holding onto your ankles and yanking yourself forwards, because that's where you can cause issues in your hamstrings. Possibly you can cause issues in your lower back as well as you kind of crunch yourself forwards. So don't do that, okay? Now I need to try and speed up today because I realized yesterday's stretching session was like 10 minutes long. So let's move on to glutes next. So one leg up on the rail, put one foot over so it's in the crook of your knee. Bring this knee across your body. Sorry, podcast people, you have no idea what I'm saying. And then you should have a straight line between your face, your knee, and your foot. Hold that knee in place and rotate round so that you can feel that stretch down here in the glutes, and you can hold onto the back of your seat for stability if you wish. Podcast people, I know it's a bit hard because I'm just describing it. Hopefully either you've got a good idea of what I'm doing anyway from this being the 15th time we've done it, or you've maybe checked out the poster I have on the RowAlong.com website, or you just load up any of my recent, like this series of the Get Fit by Rowing series on YouTube. Skip to the end. There's a chapter marker for the cool down in the stretching section. And just zip through and you can see what I mean when I'm talking about all these stretches, okay? Change legs. Oh, and do exactly the same thing. Rotate round. That rotation is kind of important in activating your glute part of this stretch. I think that's one of the reasons I went on a bit too long yesterday was I was talking about the difference between your glutes and your piriformis when it comes to this stretch. And so that rotation round, so you're basically looking perpendicular to your rowing machine, is really important for getting it down here into your glutes, okay? Right, let's go up and do quads next. It's a long way to stand up. I mean, I know it's a bit of a noise I make when I stand up, but it's a long way on a water rower. So rest one hand on the monitor if you want to give yourself a bit of stability. Flick up your opposing leg behind you. Oh, there we go, that was me needing the stability. And then hold your heel against your backside. And that should give you a nice stretch into your quads. Now my intention today, I had no idea why it pops into my head. Now that we're halfway, this is session 3 of week 4, isn't it? If you're doing 4 sessions a week. Yeah, so my intention, if I can remember today, is to weigh myself before I shower, okay? Oh, I'm gonna fall over, so I'm gonna swap legs. I'm gonna pretend I meant that. Because I weighed myself last week, which was midway through week 3, which did show a big change from the beginning of the series, but I want to combine it with the changes a week later, if you get what I mean. So I'm gonna make a little short video. So keep an eye out on my channel for the YouTube shorts. They'll just quickly go through what I weighed myself last week and if there's been any change just a week later, because often when you first start a plan like this, you can see huge changes really quickly. Whether it is just, let's move to hip flexors next. So hang on, one knee on the ground, one foot in front of you, 90-degree angles on both legs. Tense that glute for your back leg, tense your abs, and then lean back slightly and you should get a good stretch into your hip flexors. Yeah, when you start doing anything, especially if you're not used to doing this kind of a series, when you first start it, you can notice really sudden changes, okay? Especially if it's combined with a change in eating. So when I started this, I was back into bad eating habits. I was eating quite a lot of rubbish and I was actually, I'm gonna say fall off the wagon, but that makes it sound like I've completely given up drinking. I haven't. It's just I stopped drinking for most of the time and I only really drink from time to time. But I'd actually I think part of like the injury side of things, I was just like, I don't need to train, so I'm gonna have a glass of wine and whatever. So I was eating relatively unhealthily when I started this Get Fit. And it's one of the reasons why I started this Get Fit by Rowing series is that I realized I was becoming quite unhealthy. I said in a previous video about how I had really I was starting to see this kind of muffin top on my down at my short line. I could see my stomach hanging over slightly. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm fat, okay? I don't want to, because I'm not, but I could see that I had an extra layer of fat that I've not had for years. So I've just changed legs, podcast people. And so I thought, right, okay, you put on a little bit of fat. Scales told me that I'd lost muscle and I'd put on body fat percentage. So it was true, it wasn't just me looking in the mirror. And so I've gone back and so I've stopped drinking, I've stopped eating sweets and cakes and chocolate and stuff. And so pretty much as a result of doing that, whether I was exercising or not, there would have been changes, okay? Just by not eating rubbish, by staying within my calorie intake, I would have seen some kind of change in terms of weight and just by kind of flushing all that stuff out of my system as well. So that's why at the end of week 3, I did see quite a large change in terms of my figures, but this week since is just as important because I'm ensconced within the plan now. Let's do forearms and wrists. Hands in front of your body, in front of your face. Sorry, push them together, bring them down in front of your body. And that should give you a nice stretch into your wrists and forearms. Yeah, so the first 3 weeks are going to be a combination of this series, but also just the healthy eating and the fact that I've started to look after myself again properly instead of just phoning it in and blaming injury. But the past week, while I've been still I've not changed anything in terms of eating habits. So it's really going to be just about what result this has had, okay, the rowing, because I've been doing exactly the same thing. So a week later, have I lost any weight? Have I put on any muscle? Have I lost any body fat? Now, bear in mind, I'm not just rowing. In fact, let's get this done. Okay, let's move on to shoulders. Hands straight in front. This could last 10 minutes again, isn't it? Hands straight out in front of you. Bring it across your body. Loop that other arm across it to just help with that stretch. So my full regime, okay, I think I said this right at the beginning when I was talking about routines and things, but just so you know, my full regime is that in the morning before, basically I wake up, I down a quick shot of coffee, because I can't live without coffee. And then I come out here and I'll do either a 22-minute, basically I'll run for the length of an episode of How I Met Your Mother, okay? I'll either do that or I'll go on Zwift, on the bike for 10 minutes, and then I'll do 2K on the ski at a very lowish intensity. It takes me about 9 minutes, that kind of pace, okay? So I'll do either that. I'll alternate days. So I'll either run or I'll bike and ski, okay? So I'll do that in the mornings. Let's swap arms for the shoulders. Then at lunchtime is when I record these for you. Hi, how are you? Hope you're enjoying the series. Please let me know. And then at night, I will then do weights, okay? And I'll kind of alternate between, I'll tend to do like chest and quads one night, and then I'll do biceps, triceps, and biceps, glutes, and hamstrings, and shoulders, there we go, the next night. And I'll just alternate those two, and I'll do at least 4 sessions of that a week. And for weights. Okay, so I'm not overdoing it, but it's a high resistance, so it's like a kind of a building in resistance rather than just a high rep. So it's like low reps, high weight, rather than low weight, high reps is what I do. What are we on to next? Okay, triceps next. No, biceps next, sorry, good grief. Oh, I fixed my wee seat pad. So hands behind you, and then rotate those thumbs outwards. And that should give you a nice stretch into your biceps. So anyway, so that's what I do. So I'll do at least 4 weight sessions. I will throw in, like on a Sunday, I'll do like a high rocks training session, which has then like sled pushes and wall balls and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so four weight sessions. I'll row 4 times a week for making these, but then I'll also do like an extended bike or an extended row or an extended ski erg or something. I'm not doing extended runs yet because I've still got this hip flexor injury, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing. So it's not just these 4 sessions a week for the Get Fit by Rowing. So it's a really long roundabout way to say all that. Let's do triceps next. Hand up in the air, falls down, touches your spine. Use your other hand to help that elbow so it points straight to the sky. But yeah, so I don't even know what the results are going to be. And there's going to be an element of hydration involved where I'm trying to think what have I had. I've had 2 of my big watered down cups of coffee today. I've had about 1/3 of a water bottle there, but then I will have sweated off quite a lot during today's row, so who knows. So, which is kind of, let's swap arms to triceps. It's kind of a lot of the time going like these long, like going a week in between weigh-ins is kind of a bad idea because you never know what, like maybe I was completely empty when I weighed myself last time. Maybe I've got a full bladder this time and I don't realize and whatever. So it's almost better to weigh yourself day by day as long as it doesn't lead to any kind of loss of motivation if you don't see it going the direction you want to. But it's almost like you can draw a line through it and give yourself the average across the week. It's better than doing it like a week in a week. So who knows? Anyway, so check out the video if I post it. Sorry, I know that was all about me. I try not to make these about me, but I want to try and... What I'm trying to be is your shadow, okay? Is that we do these together, okay? You load these up, you do these together with me, you put up with me, for which thank you very much. But like in yesterday's row, it was clear that I was putting in the max effort that I could, okay? And it's the same with everything else. I'm eating healthily, I'm doing all the stuff I need to around this. I'm still not drinking enough water, which I just can't get into the habit of right now, don't know why. But yeah, so this is why I'm talking about me and my weight and all that kind of stuff, is to try and let you know that and I'm also trying to make these caveats so that if you haven't noticed the same changes that I have, it's perfectly fine, okay? There's things happen, life happens, your body happens. But just so you can kind of be part of a journey and kind of feel accountable within, we could both be accountable for each other. Yeah, does that make sense? Probably not. About as much sense as my big bowl of blue power. Or my ball of blue power. There we go. Right, I'm going to say goodbye because this has gone on way too long. Remember, if you can leave me any kind of a comment, whether it's abuse or thanks, I'd prefer it as thanks, then please leave the Get Fit with, Get Fit with, I've forgotten my own hashtag, Get Fit with RowAlong hashtag on anything that you post. It's the same for this entire series, just so I can try and get loads of them out there. Yeah, and do let me know how you're getting on with it because especially for these low intensity rows, they're so important. I'm really trying to get across. I always talk about the importance of these, and I never really have to oversell the max intensity ones because they're the ones that people enjoy, whereas something like this, it's like, I know that people are like, oh, it's a long, slow one, but it's so important. In many ways, this is better for you than those high intensity ones, okay? Right, I'm going to stop talking about that stuff. Well, I'm not really, I'm going to keep on going one day. So thank you so much for turning up and doing this one. Let me know how you got on with it.